Hello everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Munkhbat Dashdorj. I am Vice Professor of Mongolia National University and Director of Center for Mongol Study. I'm going to present the research on Mongolia's traditional knowledge, rituals and customs for preventing from plague or infectious disease. Every nation has been preserved various preventive strategies and unique remedies from their traditional system of medicine. The traditional knowledge, culture, ritual and customs of Mongolians who have protected themselves and their families during the plague or pandemic, as well as nomadic method of personal hygiene and healthy living are highlighted here. Mongolians have been practicing and developing their medical methods and traditions since ancient times. We can see the traditional medicine was influenced by the nomadic lifestyle, culture and the country's harsh climate. Here some historical sources. One of most important and essential source is the Important Principles of Food and Drink, which was written by U.S.A. Academician and researcher Bolt, who studied these works, mentioned that it proves that the high level of knowledge of traditional Mongolian medicine about infectious disease. And he noted about U.S.A. He was Mongolian and he wrote this work by studying the food and drink traditions of Mongolian empire's kings from the time of Kubilai Khan to Zayat Khan. This book included some important practices such as oral hygiene or personal hygiene, and about the discovery of dental floss in the Tang dynasty. And I wanted to mention that one another interesting fact is related to maids who work in the court. The maids who served the food and the drinks to the Mongol kings of Yuan dynasty, they used to hold the food on their heads and wear mouth cover to prevent food and drink from becoming poisonous and contamination through the breathing. Here some news and facts about the spread of plague in the ancient times. Once typhoid spread in the Genghis Khan's army, within a short time many victims were affected by the outbreak of the illness. For traditional treatment, Yelu Chutse, best known as the chief advisor of Genghis Khan, brought 2 camels carried a rhubarb's root and healed the sick soldiers with the rhubarb's root. He treated tens of thousands of people at this time. And one of the essential facts in the ancient source is the cloud platform at Juyon Pass. We know South Child Port. The researcher Bolt said there is a memorial inscription written in 6 different languages, and its incredible heritage of literary culture dating back many centuries. There are few monuments written in Mongolian square letters here. So the last 2 lines of the inscription read, "May all sins and the plagues be eradicated, and may all people and animals be happy forever." And also it means there is still talk and discussion of the spread of infectious disease at this time. Accordingly, Plane Carpini, William de Rubruck and Marco Polo travelers from Europe in the Middle Ages emphasized about the customs and traditions of Mongols during the plague in their notes or other works. Once Plane Carpini said, the traditional belief of Mongolians has been that fire can purify impure objects and expel demons. Foreign people were forced to pass between 2 fires in order to enter the Khan's place, Khan's palace, you can say. And additionally, William de Rubruck also said one interesting fact: when a person becomes seriously ill and dies, the upper frame of his yurt is marked with a spear wrapped in a black felt. That way, no one will go near the yurt. It's one kind of sign of isolation, we can say. The nomads' common practices against the spread of infectious disease were presented by Marco Polo, who was an Italian Catholic priest. and traveler, lived in Mongolia for 28 years. So he mentioned that Mongolians don't throw away their mucus, sputum and saliva anywhere, because they always carry a square of clothes as well as a small container of saliva made of iron and other metals. And researcher Dr. Bazar stated about the personal hygiene. All the travelers carry a small piece of sheet copper in their personal bag. So they put the sheet copper to the water to make tea or some food, and it boiled together. It was considered as one of special rituals. However, it was only later that copper was discovered to have a special bactericidal effect. So we can emphasize the Mongolian culture to prevent oneself from infectious disease as follows within 5 main framework. First, naming of various infectious diseases. Mongolians have tradition of softening various infectious diseases with the word of white color and associating the word God. For example, white God, which means rubella, white flower, which means smallpox, and white flu, which means influenza. Our food culture, every Mongolian had his own cup, spoon and chopsticks since ancient times, and they used to keep these with themselves everywhere, and it was made of eco-friendly materials such as wood, bone, stone. And Mongolians don't eat or drink from other people's cups unless they have their own spoons or cups. We have special phrase of no cup, no mouth. It's very famous among folk. For our greetings and respect others, young person to hold out his arms, palms up, and grasp the older person just in front of the elbows. Especially in doing so, you raise your palms and express your respect for the other person. And our traditional customs don't include the act of kissing or hugging or handshaking. For personal hygiene, I wanted to mention that about del, which is Mongolian national costume. Del is perhaps the most practical article of clothing of Mongolian men in this steppe. Interestingly, in the harsh climate of the Central Asian highlands, Mongolians don't have gloves on their national costumes. However, the role of this glove was played by the in front of the part of the long sleeve of the Mongolian del. We call it nodrg. Mongolians always use their nodrg in the front of their sleeves to cover their hands when they touch something hot, cold or dirty. It protects the person's hand from external bacteria and other risks. We can see it from the pictures. And here we can see Nielmore, which is a saliva container, you can say. It's a container made of copper or iron or other metal with a lid that fits in palm of your hand. It's like snuff bottle, looks like. So, but put the saliva in this bottle and clean the bottle before going to bed. Everyone has a small container called a saliva container, Nielmor. Avoiding spitting outside is a traditional expression of Mongolian knowledge that has prevented the spread of disease through saliva. We have carried thin plates of copper along with our dishes, towels and spoons when traveling away from home. As I mentioned before, copper, it was discovered bactericidal effects later. From ancient times, the main measures used against the infectious disease were quarantine of infected personnel and disposal of infected items or objects. So, for example, in the case of influenza-like illnesses, firstly, black rope should be prepared and 2 poles should be placed outside of the home to tie the rope to it as a sign of isolation, we can say. And after that, in the case of highly contagious disease, upper frame of the Mongol yurt is marked with a spear wrapped in a black felt. Here our especially spiritual belief, which is to purify items or expel demons by fire, the ritual of disinfection with juniper and thyme. Juniper and thyme sterilization rituals come in 2 forms. One of them washing with water containing juniper and thyme ingredient, or fumigation, people and anything with smoke from burning juniper and steel. So Mongolians believe that burning juniper and dried dung can be used to repel negative energy and remove impurities from the mind. So when an illness is diagnosed, they leave their suitcases, all of belongings in the field, and come back few days later to pick them up. At that time, bacteria that clung to the objects died in the natural wind and sunlight. And you can see from the pictures, it was customary to disassemble the yurt in half, like take the wool, leave the belongings in the open, and when you return home after a while, things in the yurt are also free of bacteria due to natural factors. Here we are, let me explain conclusion. Mongolian people who have been nomadic pastoralists in the highlands of Central Asia for 1,000 years has been identified the dangers of disease and plagues, protected themselves, and created unique culture of personal hygiene, and practiced developed of all of this for centuries. It's interesting to note that some elements of this traditional Mongolian culture and behavior are similar, seems to similar in content and form due to guidelines given by World Health Organization and medical experts, especially on the prevention of COVID-19 pandemic. And it's need to be studied. So for natural plants and animal manure such as juniper, thyme, cow dung, all of this need to be studied in detail from the perspective of modern science, I think. Despite the fact that it originated and developed over the centuries, we can say traditional culture and customs of our people have lost their common significance and importance to the world and today's humanity. Thank you for your attention.